Most women completely overlook the most revealing 5 seconds of any interaction with a man, and that's greeting. What if I told you that those first moments expose everything about his true intentions about you? The science of body language reveals that a man's initial greeting contains unconscious signals that can't be faked. In the next few minutes, I'll show you the 3 hidden greeting patterns that separate the men who genuinely adore you from those who are just playing games. One particular greeting style? It's the unmistakable sign he's completely captivated by you. Pay close attention, because I'll also reveal the subtle warning sign that behavioral psychologists say appears in the first 7 seconds, a sign most women miss until it's too late. This isn't just dating advice, it's relationship intelligence that could save you months of wasted emotional investment. By the end of this video, you'll never look at a simple hello the same way again. And trust me, the final greeting style I'll share? It's the one that proves he's not just interested, he's absolutely obsessed with you. Stick around till the end, your future self will thank you. Before I dive into these revealing greeting patterns, I want to give you a simple framework to understand what we're looking at. I'm going to show you exactly what to look for in descending order, from the most dangerous red flags to the absolute best green flags. The reality is that how a man greets you is one of the most unconscious and therefore honest indicators of his true feelings toward you. Unlike rehearsed conversation or practiced charm, those initial moments of greeting reveal what behavioral psychologists call intention leakage, when a person's true motives slip through their conscious control. And I've saved the most powerful, can't-miss sign for last, the one that without question identifies a man who's completely captivated by you. So stay with me, because each greeting pattern builds on the one before it. The first greeting pattern is what I call the distracted greeter. This is the man who physically shows up but isn't truly present when he meets you. Here's what it looks like. He approaches while still checking his phone, gives you a quick side hug or half-hearted wave, his eyes dart around the room instead of connecting with yours, and his energy seems flat or elsewhere. His body language is oriented either away from you or already preparing to move on to something else. According to Dr. Albert Mehrabian's famous communication study, only 7% of emotional communication happens through words. A staggering 55% comes through body language and 38% through vocal tone. So when a man's body language during greeting screams distracted, believe it. Let me tell you about my client Melissa. She kept dating men who would text her constantly but then seem oddly disengaged in person. The pattern continued until we identified that every single one of these men had the same distracted greeting pattern. Their bodies were telling the truth, their text messages weren't, they weren't emotionally available. The science behind this is clear. When we genuinely care about someone, our brains release oxytocin, the bonding hormone which naturally focuses our attention on that person. The distracted greeter's brain simply isn't having that chemical reaction to you. The difference becomes crystal clear when you see greeting 4. It's a stark contrast that showcases what genuine intention looks like. Our second red flag greeting is what I call the performative charmer. Unlike the distracted greeter who barely notices you, this man makes a show of greeting you, but it's exactly that. A show. You'll recognize him by these telltale signs. He greets you with exaggerated enthusiasm that seems to be performed for others around you. His greeting feels like it's designed to attract attention rather than create genuine connection. There's often a disconnect between his big gestures and his actual eye contact or physical positioning. And perhaps most revealing, his greeting style doesn't change much regardless of who he's greeting. Research from the Social Cognition Lab at Princeton University has shown that authentic expressions of emotion involve synchronized facial microexpressions that last fractions of a second. The performative greeter's expressions don't contain these authentic markers, they're rehearsed, not felt. That means when someone is truly happy or excited to see you, their faces show it for a split second, even if they try to hide it. But if they are faking their emotions, their face won't show that same brief, genuine reaction. I remember working with Jessica, who kept falling for men who seemed incredibly excited about her initially but quickly lost interest. When we analyzed these interactions, we discovered each man's greeting was almost identical to how he greeted everyone else in the room. It wasn't special to her. The performative charmer's greeting is about ego and social positioning, not about you. His greeting says, "Look at me. Aren't I charming?" rather than "I see you, and I'm genuinely happy you're here." The next greeting might seem similar on the surface, but there's one crucial difference that changes everything about what it means for your relationship potential. And that difference comes down to whether the energy is directed outward for show or specifically toward connecting with you. Now we're moving into what I call a yellow flag greeting, and that is the nervous admirer. This isn't necessarily bad, but it requires careful interpretation. The nervous admirer shows these signs. He might stumble over his words slightly when first seeing you. You'll notice small self-soothing behaviors like adjusting his clothes, clearing his throat, or fixing his hair as he approaches. His voice might start slightly higher than his normal speaking voice. And there's a noticeable shift in his energy or composure specifically around you compared to others. Neuroscience explains this perfectly. When we're in the presence of someone we're attracted to, our sympathetic nervous system activates, the same system responsible for our fight or flight response. This releases adrenaline, which can cause these nervous behaviors. I bet you must have noticed this in a guy before. He might exhibiting nervous behaviors like fidgeting, stumbling over his words, or avoiding eye contact when he sees you. This is because his brain's fight or flight response has been triggered, releasing adrenaline and causing these nervous reactions. My client Rachel was confused about a colleague who was always confident in meetings but became awkward and fidgety whenever they spoke one-on-one. Once she recognized the nervous admirer pattern, she understood his behavior wasn't disinterest. It was quite the opposite. The key difference between the performative charmer and the nervous admirer is authenticity. The nervous admirer's reaction is involuntary and specifically triggered by you. It's not a performance, it's a genuine physiological response to your presence. However, nervousness alone doesn't guarantee romantic compatibility or emotional availability. That's why it's a yellow flag. When dealing with men like that, keep an open mind, but stay alert. Now we're getting closer to what you really want to hear, the signs he's genuinely interested and emotionally available. The next greeting pattern shows a significant shift in quality of connection. We've reached our first definite green flag. I call it the present connector. This greeting pattern signals a man who is emotionally available and genuinely interested in connecting with you. Here's how to spot it: he gives you his complete attention from the moment he sees you. His phone disappears or is completely ignored. His body fully orients toward you, shoulders, feet, and eyes all aligned in your direction. His facial expression changes noticeably when he first sees you, a genuine smile that reaches his eyes, what scientists call a Duchenne smile involving the orbicularis oculi muscles. And importantly, there's a natural, unhurried quality to his greeting. According to relationship researchers Gottman and Levinson, who studied couples for over 40 years, these moments of greeting, what they call bids for connection, are powerful predictors of relationship success. The present connector doesn't miss these opportunities. Meaning a present connector will always make an effort to show they care, is present and also attentive, and responds to you with kindness and interest. My client Danielle had dated a series of emotionally unavailable men before meeting Alex. What struck her immediately was how different his greeting felt, like time slowed down and nothing was more important than that moment of connection. 3 years later, they're happily married, and he still greets her with that same present quality. The present connector's greeting says, "You matter. This moment matters. I'm fully here with you." It creates what psychologists call psychological safety, the feeling that you can be vulnerable and authentic with this person. As good as this looks, it doesn't compare to the final greeting pattern I promised you. The present connector shows healthy interest and emotional availability, but the last pattern? It reveals something much deeper, a man who's not just interested but utterly captivated by you. Let's quickly recap what we've covered so far. We've seen how the distracted greeter reveals a man who's emotionally unavailable, how the performative charmer is more interested in social validation than genuine connection, how the nervous admirer might be interested but requires careful interpretation, and how the present connector shows healthy, mindful interest in you. But I haven't shown you the most powerful greeting yet, the one that behavioral psychologists say is impossible to fake because it involves involuntary microexpressions and physiological responses that occur before conscious control kicks in. Now, the ultimate green flag greeting is what I call the captivated admirer. This is the unmistakable sign of a man who is absolutely magnetized by you. The captivated admirer's greeting contains these key elements. First, you'll notice a brief moment of what psychologists call recognition response, a slight widening of the eyes and momentary pause when he first sees you. His pupils will dilate, a completely involuntary response that indicates intense interest. There's an immediate, genuine smile that transforms his entire face. His body language shows what experts call gravitation, an unconscious physical movement toward you, as if pulled by an invisible force. And perhaps most tellingly, there's a quality of pleasant surprise in his greeting, regardless of whether your meeting was planned or not. What makes this greeting impossible to fake is the precise timing of these responses. According to research from the University of California, these authentic reactions occur in the first 400 milliseconds, far too fast for conscious control. They're governed by the limbic system, the emotional center of the brain. Let me share Amanda's story. She had been dating casually for years when she met Michael at a friend's dinner party. What struck her wasn't anything he said, but the way his face lit up when she entered the room. It was like watching someone see their favorite person in the world, she told me. Their connection was immediate and profound. 2 years later, Michael confessed he knew she was special from that very first moment. Another client, Sophia, was torn between 2 men she was dating. Both seemed interested, but she couldn't decide which connection had more potential. When we analyzed their greeting patterns, the difference became clear. One was a present connector, showing healthy interest, but the other was a captivated admirer, with that unmistakable quality of delight whenever he saw her. She chose the captivated admirer, and they're now engaged. The science behind this pattern is fascinating. When someone is truly captivated, their brain releases a cocktail of chemicals, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, creating what anthropologist Helen Fisher calls the brain in love. This neurochemical state creates visible, measurable changes in behavior that can't be consciously replicated. Unlike the nervous admirer, whose anxiety might diminish their presence, the captivated admirer's excitement enhances his focus on you. Unlike the present connector, who chooses to give you his attention, the captivated admirer couldn't look away if he tried. This greeting says, "Seeing you is the highlight of my day. You fascinate me. I'm drawn to you in ways I can't fully control." It's the greeting of a man who isn't just interested in dating you, he's fascinated by you as a person. And here's the most important part. Research shows that relationships that begin with this captivated quality tend to maintain higher levels of satisfaction over time. The initial chemical attraction evolves into a deeper bond characterized by continued curiosity and delight in each other. So, how do you respond when you identify the captivated admirer greeting? First, recognize its significance. This isn't just flattery, it's a powerful indicator of potential compatibility. When a man greets you this way consistently, it shows you occupy a special place in his emotional landscape. Second, observe if this greeting pattern remains consistent over time. The truly captivated admirer doesn't lose this quality of greeting with familiarity. In fact, research shows the neurochemical response can strengthen with repeated positive interactions. Third, notice how his greeting compares to how he greets others. Especially other ladies. The contrast between his general social greeting and how he greets you specifically tells you everything about where you stand in his world. Most importantly, trust your intuition. Your brain is subconsciously processing thousands of microsignals during these greeting moments. That flutter you feel when someone greets you with genuine captivation isn't just romantic fantasy, it's your brain recognizing a significant connection potential. Remember, greeting patterns are windows into a person's true feelings about you. The distracted greeter and performative charmer reveal men who aren't emotionally available for real connection. The nervous admirer might have potential but requires further observation. The present connector shows healthy interest and emotional availability. And the captivated admirer? He's the one who sees you, values you, and is genuinely excited by your presence in his life. I'd love to hear your experiences with these greeting types. Comment below with your stories. Have you encountered these patterns? Did they accurately predict the person's intentions? And if you found this helpful, subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell notification so you don't miss next week's video, where I'll show you the 3 conversation patterns that reveal if he's thinking about you long-term versus just in the moment. Until then, remember to pay attention to those crucial first moments of greeting. They reveal more than 1,000 words ever could.